Hey Hope, this is Pastor Paul, and this is your daily dose of hope. Money is such a thing for people. It's like any discussion about money. People get all tense, they get all sweaty, they get like the church shouldn't be talking about all of that and all of those things that we put on money. And here's one of the things that I think happens for some of us is money becomes our God. And anytime someone threatens our God, we get nervous or frustrated or angry about that. I want to read a passage real quick. It's from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, verse 19 and following. It says, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moth and rust do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal." What he's saying is make sure that this life that you live here is preparing you for the life there. Store up for yourselves treasures there. How do we do that? What kind of treasures are going to be in heaven? Well, the things that matter to God. First of all, we know that God does call us to give financially. Matter of fact, the next verse says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." What he's saying there is wherever you put your treasure, your heart follows. Wherever you put your treasure, your heart follows. So put your treasure where you want your heart to be. And so some of us, our great desire of our heart is that we would value the things of God, the kingdom of God, the love of God, the beauty of God. We value those things. And so here's what God has invited us to do, commanded us to do, to give to his church, to the people, right? To give a percentage of all that we have directly up front to that. Because where your treasure is, your heart will follow. So you place your treasure where you want your heart to be. There's this other story that Jesus told. He was in the temple and he was sitting off to the side, it said, and he's watching people give into the treasury of the temple. And in those days, the temple treasury had this, it was almost like an upside down tuba. The horn of the tuba was big and wide and had this hole down in the middle, and people would come, and it says in the scriptures that they would throw their money into the treasury, and it would make all this noise, and people would turn and look and notice the giver. And Jesus then referred to this lady who came in. This is, by the way, is a widow's mite. I think it's very tiny, you can see it. A widow came in, and it's called the widow's mite because after this story that Jesus told, this lady who was a widow put in 2 of these little coins worth less than a penny, worth less than a penny. And she took them, and it says, different than throw them in like the rich people and the arrogant people and people who wanted to be noticed. It says she put it in. She just put it in very quietly. And Jesus said she put in more than everybody else because out of her poverty, she gave everything she had. See, in God's economy, the heart really does matter. And so you may say, oh, I don't know, I don't feel like the heart matters. So you place your treasure where you want your heart to be so that someday all that you are and all that you have belongs to God. This is what Jesus said. In the Gospel of Mark, chapter 12, Jesus sat down opposite the place where the offerings were put in and watched the crowd putting their money into the temple treasury. Many rich people threw in large amounts, but a poor widow came and put in 2 very small copper coins worth only a fraction of a penny. Calling his disciples to him, Jesus said, "Truly I tell you, this poor widow has put more into the treasury than all of the others. They gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything, all she had to live on." So it's like Jesus saying, you guys, listen. All that you are and all that you have, make sure that's dedicated to me. And as a discipline, put your treasure where you want your heart to be. He talks about percentage giving. He talks about being faithful. For some of us, our heart needs to be disciplined to go where we want to be. So the invitation is like the widow. Be faithful to God and place your treasure where you want your heart to be. God bless you.